Hello and welcome to Etude number 12 part 3. This is all part of the Villa-Lobos 12 and 12 challenge, all hosted from classicalguitarrocks.com. Let's dive into the main points of this section. Welcome to microstudy number 9. There are no real main points here because we're back into chord shapes again, so everything from the last two microstudies all count towards this one. The only thing to note here is we're now in the parallel major, which means we've gone from A minor to A major. So raise the third up. The other thing to note, and the other main point, is it's possible to finger the chord shape here two ways. The first way is the flamenco half bar across strings 4 and 3, 2 on string 2. So that does all the sliding, and that makes it easier to get in and out of the next section. Let's dive in and check that out. Alrighty, welcome to microstudy 9. This is the opening idea, however, in the parallel A major. So again, we have the same idea. With an extra bass beat in the second bar, so be aware of that. I am using 2 on string 2 and then 1 on strings 3 and 4, and I'm shifting that because that is easier, and it also because I also come from this chromatics fragment from the previous diminished section. And here I'm using 3, 2, 1, open, 4, 3, 2, so I'm into that section straight away. There are a couple of fingerings. Check out the last video for the alternative. There is nothing difficult about this other than keeping your hands nice and loose and lasering ahead, and we have a major third interval here, not the minor third that we had before. Let's look at this in slow motion. Welcome to microstudy number 10. There's nothing new here apart from the little scale chunk that we get, and that scale chunk is an old chestnut. And Villa-Lobos takes it somewhere different, so that's always handy. So no real main points here other than being able to switch from the chord shape into that pentatonic box. Leave a comment below if you can actually tell me which pentatonic box shape that is from the cage system. Bonus points for that. Welcome to microstudy number 10. Microstudy number 10 kicks off at bar 32 with this A major chord shifted up to the F. And then we're into an A minor chord again. So we've gone from the A major to the next idea where Villa-Lobos is leading us. He's using two different leading ideas. So there's nothing difficult about that. If you're using my fingering, it's just going to be a case of switching out the second finger to do a half bar on the 5th fret for the G, C, and E. And you keep that on as you do the box shape. Off. As soon as I'm on that C there, I have pre-prepared my third finger, and I'm starting to think about putting these other fingers down for that B dominant 7 chord in the next section. So that is really key to this. The only thing to keep in mind and to keep aware of is this is triplets, not straight. So really make sure that you hammer home and into that dominant 7th chord. Let's look at microstudy 10 in slow motion. Welcome to microstudy number 11. Main points here are: notice the open B string for emphasis on the two chords here. Practice getting into that first diminished chord shape as a separate skill. Lasering ahead with your eyes here is imperative. It's the only way you're going to get those minor third shifts. Left hand pressure needs to be super light, and the elbow has to facilitate the shift. So what I mean lead with your elbow to help move your entire hand, because you're now using all four fingers to shift a chord. Final point, that low E is staccato. It needs to be different to the next E that comes along in the next section. Make sure that you notice that this is the first time that we have a dominant chord in this entire piece. Up until this point, the chords have been either major or minor or diminished. This is the first truly dominant, big textured chord that we can hear. There's a reason for that, because Villa-Lobos is changing gears into a new idea. So be aware of it. Let's dive in and check out these chords. Welcome to microstudy number 11, the bridge material. We have one chord shape, dominant seventh, which is then shifted up a minor third, and then that sequence is moved down a tone and shifted up a minor third again. So Villa-Lobos is essentially doing B to D, A to C, into an E. The main thing to do here is make sure that you're into this chord shape prior to it in the last microstudy, when you're doing that little putting those fingers down in sequence. Once they're down, the other thing to notice is that we have an open B on the first chord, shifted up to the D, no open B, then open B, twice to open E, and then that repeats. Villa-Lobos then shifts the idea down to an A. This time the open B happens on the last chord, so we have A to C. So there's only one open B on this chord, and then it repeats that idea again. So there's nothing really difficult to this idea other than the fact that you have to shift four fingers up the fretboard in a semi-challenging chord shape. You are going to squeak, there's no two ways about it, so don't worry about it. You could try and lessen it, but the fact is Villa-Lobos wants this entire chord moved up, so don't. The only tip I can give you here is to use your elbow. You can see I'm over-exaggerating it a little bit, but your elbow should be leading the shifts. When you have the open B in the chord, you have to use your thumb to strum through two chords along with IMA. Try and keep the tone as even as possible. The open E staccato sounds are done by sequential planting. So make sure that you play, plant, play, plant, play, plant, play, plant. And I'm just using P and I, but you could use I and M as well. Let's take a look at this idea in slow motion. Welcome to microstudies 12 and 13. 12 is a primer for 13, so if you've never done this section before, I suggest you take a look at 12. I've also done another separate microstudy for this to help you get into this new idea here. A link will pop up now. Main points here are: melody is on string 5. It is imperative that that is heard above the low E, so you need right hand fine control. There are lots of stretches and jumps here, so you need to laser ahead, you need to know where the notes are and where they're going. Try and be one idea or one note or even one bar ahead of yourself. Okay, this is really important. Right hand needs to be old school. So what do I mean by that? Here's your new school hand, everything lovely in a line, and you need to just drop the wrist, drop the hand. Why? First, you won't get any scratches because that angled modern hand position gives you lots of squeaking and scratching on the bass strings, and two, it helps with clarifying the melody note on string 4. It also shortens the distance between the two fingers that I'm using. So I'm using I and A to do this section, but if you're using I and M, it helps reduce the amount of distance between the fingers, especially if you've got long ones. Let's dive in and check out this fantastic new section. Welcome to microstudy number 12 and 13. Number 12 is the primer, and number 12 is from the C chord for you to practice getting into right hand fingering. That's all it is there for, is a point for you to make a note, a special allocation that your brain goes, right, we finished this C chord, for that section. So it doesn't need to be at that point. That is my point for switching over, but you need a point, a signpost to plant in the music and say, right, I am switching over my fingers here. Let's take a look at microstudy 13A. Okay, microstudy 13A, section 3. This is the big section in the middle of this piece that sounds fantastic and is completely different to everything before it. Everything that you do here is controlled by your right hand pretty much, apart from obviously the left hand melody notes. But being able to get the melody to stand out is right hand fine control. So the first thing to do is not do this. Low E needs to be as soft as possible. So it's a stroke into the B and then a glide past the E. So that you get this. That is the effect we're after, not this. You can still hear the melody, but it is obscured by the powerful open E string. The other thing to note is my hand is floating and I'm ever so slightly playing up, and just, it's almost a sweep stroke than a rest stroke or a free stroke. It is almost a sweep stroke with all of the energy going into string 5. We're in 9/8, and 9/8 is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is your 9/8 pulse with quarter notes or crotchets underneath it. That is how you keep the changes in line. Next step is just literally learning the melody. So the melody is a B note for 9 beats with your first finger, and then stretch up with the fourth finger to D, then C for 3, second finger back to D on the fourth finger, then first finger again for the B. You need to stretch up, be able to laser into that 7th position E for 3, and then we've moved hand position and it is D again and back to E. So in this first section, really, you're only ever in 2nd position or 4th position, and you're using smart fingers where you use your 4th finger and your 2nd finger to nail the notes. So if I put that together, it looks like this. That's it, that's just the melody. I would run through that a couple of times naked, and then I would do with the low E. And that is really all that is to this section. This is the great bit of this etude, and we're going to dive into the rest of this melody in the next video. Thank you very much for staying until the end. This has been part of the Villa-Lobos 12 and 12 challenge, all hosted by classicalguitarrocks.com. We have pretty much all of the 12 etudes by Villa-Lobos busted up into tiny sections through micro-studies that you can learn. So head over there and grab yourselves some freebies and the study guides, along with a ton of extra lessons, all aimed at getting you to an intermediate and advanced level on classical guitar.